Hello, everyone. Welcome to what is definitely the finale of Let's Read Fate Requiem. I say that because, well, I took a look at, the page count, and the last chapter after this and the last couple chapters are, super, super short. So let's just, get on through, finish this off, because, the event is starting in, not very long. And so let's finish this. Plus, I mean, we're in the conclusion. I don't want to just, finish the action and then have it be oh, and then wait next week for the denouement. That would suck. So let's get going. I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit more because I can, and let's get nice and comfy back up in my chair. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. When you sit back in your chair and you're just yeah, let's go, time to get going. That's the good stuff. Okay, so let's get started here. Chapter 6. So, just as a reminder that she got hit, we learned that this is Nzambi, the origin of zombies, and there's this design, and then actually there is some official art. I looked it up on the wiki. Her in color is such an amazing servant design. I honestly am hey, can we get her for the rerun? She's real cool, right? Okay, anyways. It had not been enough. Nzambi had been wounded by my blow, but it had failed to destroy her saint graph. Beneath the soft surface of her body lurked an incredibly hard layer. My Freischütz had been allowed to pass through, but my axe had not. She looked down at the glaring gash I had opened in her chest in irritation, then reached for one of the many hands dangling from her body. Then she tipped her head back, with her mouth agape like an anglerfish, slipped it beneath her teeth, and bit down hard. Sick. That's rad. I really like that. It's just cool. With a crunching of bones, the command seals faded from it, and from many of the other hands too, which crumbled into dust. She's eating them? Eating command seals? With my foe preoccupied, I took advantage of the lull in the fighting to retrieve Koharu from the ground and retrieve her with her clutched in my arms. I made it back to where Pram was waiting and turned to find that my foe's wound had closed entirely. Even her cape was as good as new, with no tear to be seen. Well, okay, actually, wait. Now that we've learned about how the clothes are part of the body, it's okay, that makes sense. Your nature eludes me, spellcaster. Though I understand those branches you wield, at least. The grasping claws of poor, vengeful souls. Rather fitting for you, I think. The desiccated hands dropped to the ground, one after another. Still, I swore an oath to take care of any who fled through these gates, and take care of them I shall. That branch of yours is certainly bothersome, but I doubt it can save you from these. She gave no signal, but still the two war elephants advanced. They smashed two of the pillars standing in the hall with their foreheads, and then curled their mighty trunks around with their toppled remains. Surely it can't. It can. Right? No. Who's... God, I hate how they just... I hate how it's again, you can't really tell who's saying what. And it is just a thing where it's yeah, it's how the writing is. But then again, you can then okay, if you were reading normally, it'd be fine because you could go back and be okay, I see who said that. It will make more sense. Because in this case, it should be saying she gave no signal, and then it advanced, and then it said who's doing it. And it's okay, fine, you can pick it from the clues. But sometimes it's it's tough to tell. The pillar one of the beasts flung at me must have weighed several tons. With Koharu slumped on my shoulder, we just barely dodged out of the way. I had no idea that an elephant could be so dangerous. Or dexterous, rather. The other took the signal to charge, wielding its pillar like a battering ram. Yeah, no, they can do that, actually, now I'm thinking about it. I'm can they do that? No, they can. I've seen them wield stuff. I have no more interest in you. Perhaps I shall seek out that boy next. His dear little head would look wonderful dangling from my neck. Nzambi stepped up to squat on one of the war elephant's trunks, and it obediently scooped her up onto its back. Or perhaps he has gone and hidden himself away somewhere. We turned to run from the two advancing elephants, only to find our way blocked by more ranks of the walking dead. I'll be fine. I'll be fine, Aris. Get the boy away from here. Koharu had come too. She stumbled a little at first without my support, but soon enough raised her sword once more and set to cutting down the advancing zombies. It was clear she was on her last legs, but I had no choice but to hope that would suffice. With Amegas' tactical thinking, she had already attempted to heal herself. 7/10 of her command seal had vanished from the back of her hand, but it would take more than that to repair the damage from the Colosseum with the wall, and her right arm was in no better state. Whatever the blade was that Nzambi had stabbed her with, it had been no ordinary weapon. It must have damaged her magic circuit somehow. Oh, Koharu. The war elephant's thunderous footsteps shook the floor as it lumbered toward us. Nzambi's voice echoed around the corridor from the beast's back. You should know very well that outside of this citadel sprawls a kingdom of the dead. A kingdom of the dead? I had no idea what she was talking about, but I could sense nothing. Perhaps if I were a proper master, I would have had more insight. All those who tasted death become my children, and how very dear they are to me. All those who have tasted death. It took me a moment to comprehend the true scale of what she had said. Was she simply spouting nonsense in an attempt to break our spirits? Or could it be that the servants here had been so easily overwhelmed, rendered incapable of marshalling their full power, because of Nzambi's sorcery? Although some are terribly forgetful, all I do is recall the memories of death they have forgotten. Memento mori, as they say. Come, Galahad, no more hiding behind little girls' skirts. Face me like a knight and let us see how you died. That's interesting. I'm curious about that. I have no idea how he died. We were not so green as to fall for cheap taunts. I flashed Koharu a glance, and she responded wordlessly. She was not to undo her possession if she could help at all, if she could at all help it. Suddenly, the internal broadcast system flared to life, projecting Miss Fujimura's voice around the arena. Code Crimson has been invoked. The barrier around the Colosseum interior has been deactivated. All survivors, proceed to the central battlefield. The barrier she referred to was the force field erected between the battlefield and the seats to ensure that no harm came to the spectators during a match. Deactivating it was highly unusual. The announcement played once more. I doubted that anyone listening listening to it, again, every now and then there's a missing word. I'd love to just, use these videos and send them off and be like, hey, just watch this and see every time something is weird or there is a missing word and you can correct it and then put it back up, boom, bam, V1.1, the fixed version, and we do it. But, alas, that's not for me to do. I don't know about the rest of the announcement, but that's been it. That bit must be a message for me. I touched a finger to my forelock, but my call went unheeded. Where are you, Miss Fujimura? At that moment, my phone ringtone blared. Kareen. Hey, Uri, you alive? Still in the stadium? Listen, I'm super sorry, but the kid gave me a slip. I'll seppuku myself later, okay? Don't say that. Guess you get to live. Khan's with me. He's what? Are you barricaded up over there? Wait. He's what? And then that's her. Are you barricaded up over there? Damn straight. We're holed up in an empty stable just next to the arena. Got quite a few other survivors with us, and some of the fighters are helping us hold out, but they're knocking on our door. I'm not sure how much oh, crap! Momi, left! I heard a muted crash through the speaker, like something colliding with an iron cage, followed by the trumpeting of an elephant. Hannibal's final remaining war elephant, most likely, probably alongside the man himself. That announcement just now was Karen's voice, right? Is everything okay? Can we trust it? It's real. Can you get to the central arena from where you are? I think so. The shutters are down, but we can blast our way through. Apparently we can use noble phantasms now. Then do it, before it's too late. A muffled boom echoed through the speaker, followed by static, and then the line went dead. I turned to Koharu. Let's go. We need to get to the arena. But my teammates might still... there still could be competitors there. And you've seen what they can do. It's dangerous in there as it is out here. And what was that Code Crimson they mentioned? It means you're going to get your wish. She gave a little noise of surprise. Apparently she understood what I'm getting at. I see. In that case, let me lead the way. I'm more familiar with the Colosseum. A little late for directions, don't you think? How could heading further inside help you anyway? Are you hoping to checkmate yourselves? Still squatted atop the elephant, Nzambi rested her head on a bored hand. A trap, of course. Not appealing at all. I would prefer to leave it for my children. Another charge, and a few seconds later, another crash. The war elephants' advance upon us had reduced the artistic interior of the hall to rubble. Zombies seemed to spring out of every nook and cranny, reaching for us with grasping hands. I followed Koharu's lead, desperately trying to help myself and Pran from harm, to keep myself and Pran from harm. Midway through our flight, Koharu stopped in turn. It was her turn to shout and taunt at the pursuers. "Come, proud allies of Hannibal! Have you mistaken the woman for your master? I see how you strain under her yoke. Allow me to end your suffering." Nzambi's eyebrows nodded in irritation. Such ignorance. These kind souls were stolen from their forest homes to watch their comrades die on the battlefield. Do you truly think you can appeal to their better nature? She stood up on the elephant's back and leveled her sword at Koharu. "Enough of this. I shall crush you and be done with it." With a bellowing bray, the war elephants charged straight for Koharu. The knights stood waiting, sword clutched firmly in hand. I hardly dared to look as the two collided with a violent crash, and then there was silence. The first thing Pran and I could make out was beams of sunlight streaming into the corridor through the rising cloud of dust. The impact of their clash had torn a hole in the wall, opening the corridor to the open stadium in the middle of the Colosseum. The enormous battlefield lay before us once more. I was gonna say, oh, could they, be fine with light? But no, these aren't those types of zombies. The zombie had leapt from her perch a second before the collision, and alighted before us without a care in the world for the moment of destruction around her. The bellowing of the elephants was distant now, and I spared a moment's pity for the poor zombies who must have been blown far and wide by the blast. Don't pity the zombies. "So this is the Holy Lance, A child this young?" Sorry, what? Sorry, what? What? Holy Lance? What? No, what? Nzambi peered at the boy as she spoke. What? Okay, that's new. You'll find out soon enough. I ushered him behind me. At that moment, Koharu appeared over her shoulder, streaking toward her like a bolt of azure lightning. Nzambi deflected the strike with a nonchalant swing of her blade, sending the tall knight flying. It was almost as though she'd seen it coming. Damn it, Koharu! She had struck against the interior wall once more, but this time slid to the ground as two separate figures, the girl Koharu and the knight Galahad. Her possession had come undone. Likely, it had been unable to bear the damage she had accrued. From the look of it, Galahad had hardly escaped unscathed either. Perhaps a heroic spirit from the future, drawn here from the throne, Nzambi closed on Pran. No, I cannot imagine so. Well, whatever the case, any heroic spirit must know death. My knife will tell me true. What do you say, little golden child? Shall we spill your guts and find out how you died? Oh, well that's the natural counter. If she has domain over everyone who died, then well, I won't say much more, but you know. What do I do? I've got to buy time somehow, but how? If Nzambi's gaze turned to Galahad and elected to turn him into one of her zombies, I doubted we could escape with our lives. My best bet was to draw attention to Pran, but before the notion could fully occur to me, I was running. I bound my branches together into a blade, a short sword, fast, simple, and accurate, and planted myself firmly in front of her. I was quite aware that my weapon would harm the boy I wanted to protect just as easily as my enemy, a quite literal double-edged sword. I won't let you near him. Do you mind? I thought I had said I was done with you. Nzambi's blade, her enormous knife, and my branch sword clashed, locked together. I swung my blade upward, placing my trust in the techniques he had once taught me. Damn it, he's my servant! He had once taught me? What are you talking about? My foe easily batted the blow aside. I think not. You are nothing but a spellcaster, and I know your kind well. Magi, spellcasters, miserable creatures all, caring only for their own gain, and nothing for the lives of others. It is the value you see in this child that makes you so desperate, nothing more. I knew that better than anyone, but he's my servant. I don't care if he's useless. So tell me, would you make him a toy to satisfy your affections? How cruel, how cruel. How do you expect someone useless to take pride in themselves? Then let me be alone. That's all I need. At this close a range, it was impossible to muster as much force as my axe could. The crushing weight behind Nzambi's swing forced me back. My blade began to come undone. The recoil sent one of its constituent branches lashing backwards, coming close to striking Pran. I immediately retracted my blade. My own defense was nothing compared to what would happen if that touched him. Seeing their prey snatched away before their very eyes, the evil spirit's anger swelled. Gore sprayed as I began to lose control over the defiled blood they inhabited. Black blood oozed from the countless wounds. Their wrath opened across my body, even from behind my eyeballs, and dripped to the floor, defiling this sacred battleground. Oh, jeez. Well now, it seems that if you do not satisfy that loathsome branch's hunger for spirits, it will devour you instead. So what? None knew that better than I. My Erkhem and my Freyshoots, which people told me were like, that's not actually invoking them, it's just named after them. Okay, fair. Of which only a few bullets now remained, were not tools that would blithely heed my command. They were evil spirits in their purest form, and they were always watching for an opportunity to turn against their master. But even so, you'll never touch him. Pitiful, I can hardly watch. Even the child has better sense than you. Nzambi leapt forward to plant both hands on the ground, and then, with her body still in midair, uncoiled her legs like a spring to land a devastating kick in my abdomen. If there had been any airlift in my lungs, I would have screamed. The blow sent me flying, bouncing across the dirt floor of the arena. One of my ribs cracked from the impact, and I fought for breath. As I lay sprawled, I suddenly felt the entire Coliseum shake violently. The roar of an explosion rolled from the other side of the Coliseum. I heard clamoring voices, collapsing walls, sustained gunfire, shouts, and screams. Somewhere in the middle of it all, I thought I heard Kareen's voice. Through the earth, I heard the confused hubbub of battle. Well, that was a weird way to say that word. My eyeballs were blocked with clotted blood, and sheer agony had rolled them back into my head. I forced them in place with my fingers and tried to struggle back to my feet. Before me stood Nzambi with her knife to Pran's chest. I have to stop her. My fingers clawed furrows through the dirt as I dragged myself onward, seeking him, praying that there existed something in this world so pure that it must not, could not be tarnished. Whoa. What? Wait, okay, I don't know why it scrolled down. Praying that there existed something in this world that not even the omnipotence of the Grail could replace. If not, how was I ever to move forward? You don't seem to fear me, boy. Why is that? The child gazed silently back into the zombie's crimson eyes. You aren't his snake. He gently set his fingertip to the point of her blade. So I'm not scared of you. I wonder why he's so scared of snakes. I have an idea, but... What? Nzambi warily made to withdraw her knife, only to find it stuck fast. It's cracking. What have you... A white-hot glow spread across the outlandish blade from the child's finger. It flared fiercely for a moment, and then burst apart. After a moment, the heat and light receded enough that I could make out Pran standing alone. He sank to his knees, and collapsed to the ground, as though all strength had been drained from his tiny body. Where's Nzambi? I can't see her. The dusk-skinned woman had vanished without a trace. I reached out with my senses, seeking. Perhaps she had temporarily relinquished her physical body and returned to her transparent spiritual form? That would present its own dangers, but in any case, it seemed that for now, we had one fewer threat to worry about. Galahad approached the boy, taking care to keep his own two swords as far away from him as possible. Koharu, now a young girl once more, staggered to where I lay huddled on the ground. She winced with pain, but bore it bravely. Maurice, she's here. The stigmata. Finally, she's here. With Lucius. As though a dam had burst, a wave of berserk servants and resurrected corpses rolled across the open arena. The pair entered from the upper seats far above, where they had a commanding view of the sorry state of the arena. He took a moment to survey the scene below him, and then quite literally, oh right. I was like, who's the master? Right, Lucius. Oh wait! Oh, I just scrolled down and saw what his real name was. Bruh, okay, here we are. Okay, I didn't know it was him. Okay. She lay okay, so he took a moment to survey the scene below, and then quite literally flew down the gentle curve of the outer wall. She lay clutched in his arms, clad in her ever-present black sailor uniform. The great cape that fluttered from his shoulders was dyed in color, the purest, deepest red. Oh, Code Crimson it was called, the Scarlet Summons. Its red was not the red of danger, it was the red of Rome, of the proud standard of the Roman army and their patron Mars. Again, just the way that this relates back to what's going on in Fate right now is so, in Grand Order, is so good. The Grail had built a 1,000-year empire, and the cries of the populace called its defenders to their posts. Now they had come, the defenders of the peace, that they would do their duty. Manazur Chitose, the Stigmata, and at her side, Lucius Longinus, the Holy Lance. They had answered the call. Okay, so listen. I actually had the existence of Longinus as a Lancer spoiled for me, like, by a student. We were doing, researching saints and finding modern depictions of them, and one of them chose Lucius Longinus, and then chose this, and I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if, so I'm like, wow, that looks like a Fate servant, and he's like, it is. I'm like, what? I didn't know he's in one. And then he's like, yeah, it's from one of the novels. And so I didn't know his name was Lucius, and that we'd go with that. Cool. And two, I'd completely forgotten about this, and so I still had the pop off. That's so good. Day one, I was like, what a Lancer to have, right? The Lancer. Like, honestly, Longinus is the Lance. Real talk. Like, to me, as soon as I heard there's Lancer, that was the one to come to mind. I'm sorry I'm late. The train was delayed, but we came as fast as we could. Chitose did not sound particularly apologetic as she alighted gently on the floor of the arena. I seem to recall doing most of the legwork, Lucius responded a little peeved. Well, of course you did. I worked up a fine sweat dealing with that mess in Shinjuku. Even the best of us need a break once in a while. Chitose's command seals shone dully even as the pair bickered. These were no cheap imitations. They were true command seals of the old world. These 4 arcane symbols were what had earned her the moniker of the Stigmata. Okay, so that's so her Stigmata, which of course is like holy symbols that appear on people, usually in the forms of injuries and stuff. So her Stigmata is the old style command seals. So that makes sense. I think that makes sense to it. Perhaps what that light signified, that the servants around flocked to her. Perhaps with their minds lost, they behaved no differently to startled beasts. Or perhaps, in their berserk state, their warriors' instincts acknowledged her as a worthy foe. That's so cool. She spotted the pocket of resistance among her enemies, a ragtag group of surviving citizens and servants who still maintained their sanity, and called out to them in a voice that carried easily across the battlefield. Make your way around to me. Lucius and I will deal with them. Those words presaged a massacre. In one hand, Lucius readied a great shield summoned from nothingness. In the other, he gripped his crimson spear. It's always got to be red, huh? Roman soldier and master stood back to back, cutting down their enemies faster than I could follow. Overwhelming barely seemed to describe the sheer power that accompanied each flourish of the Holy Lance. This was the might of the champion who had emerged from the Holy Grail War. Lucius Longinus, the centurion who met his fate atop the hill of cavalry. The lancer of the 7 heroic spirits. The strongest servant, who stood victorious atop the melee of the Holy Grail War and delivered its prize to Chitose's hands. No matter how illustrious the heroes whose souls they reflected, the heroic spirits of Mosaic City were but pale shades before his majesty. We retreated warily, careful of our surroundings. Even as we distanced ourselves from the unfolding bloodbath, Koharu's gaze remained locked on the battle. Did you see that, Aris? Oh my god, okay, wait. And that strike, what are those on her hands and feet? Are they black keys? No, shut up, they're not. She's not bayoneting with black keys, are you telling me? Wait, what? It was little surprised that she was so fascinated. Chitose took neither the black keys nor Gander for her weapon. This display of violence, so unbefitting of a Magus, was something particular to her. So it's not black keys. Sorry, I thought she was bayoneting with black keys. They're called Sacri Clavi. They're replicas of the nails used to pin the Messiah to the cross. Oh, that's cool! Or more simply, holy nails. A conceptual weapon imbued with the concept of binding, born from the command seals adorning each of her 4 limbs. With each strike, square iron nails briefly manifested around her limbs to skewer her enemies. Weak and indomitable. An empty-handed pile bunker. Because that makes sense, because if you know anything about Lucius Longinus, he was the guy who was there when Jesus was put on the cross. This is so cool! Lucius, or so Lucius told me once. You wouldn't believe how hopeless she is at teaching anyone anything useful. Holy nails? Koharu shivered. She seemed nothing short of awestruck by this living legend. God, that's so cool. God, it's so cool that she punches with recreations of the nails that bound Jesus. That's so sick on each of her limbs. Her kicks are even the... it's so good. Oh my God, it's so good. But I doubt she herself is so pleased. I knew Chitose would regard this battle as her greatest shame. She had been forced to acknowledge the breakdown of the city's peace and personally take up arms against its people and their servants. It was grim work, and she would not have undertaken it gladly. She had tried to safeguard against this possibility by distancing me from my work, but it hadn't been sufficient. An outside enemy had appeared in Mosaic City, and its arrival had been a long time coming. Finally, the wave of chaos began to recede, and I managed to regroup with Kareen. Usually, she would greet me with a cheerful grin or by chiding me for my carelessness when I returned from a job, but this time she could only blanch the sight of our injuries. If Pran had been in the same sorry state, she might have fainted on the spot. However, fortunately, there wasn't so much as a scratch on him, and the sight of him, seemingly in an entirely different world to his surroundings as usual, seemed to relieve her immensely. This wasn't enough to excuse him from a furious telling off, though. He looked a little shell-shocked as he stood next to a wounded and bloody Koyu. That is so frickin' rad. She temporarily manifests. What is... oh, that's the war elephant. She temporarily manifests the nails that pounded in Jesus at the moment when she punches and kicks. That is so frickin' cool. I am legitimately shook by how rad this concept is. And I just played some Grand Order today that had me screaming, and yet here I am now in the evening, screaming at this novel. It's so cool. The wings of the battlefield had been transformed into an temporary evacuation point, and the air was heavy with exhaustion and the uneasy relaxation that takes the place of terror once it recedes. People huddled together in anxious groups, rejoicing to find each other safe and well, finally contacting friends and family. A group of pigs raced past me, squealing shrilly. Pigs? What on earth are pigs doing here? I know! Of the competitors I had seen on screen earlier, I spotted at least Minamoto Yoshitsune and her master having escaped infection. The young samurai stood a little way from the rest in her own corner of the battlefield, attracting uneasy gazes as she stacked her collection of severed heads into an enormous pile. Jesus. Hannibal was the last servant to fall before Chitose and Longinus' unstoppable onslaught. Koharu watched his end herself, unable to do anything for him but witness his final moments. She fell to her knees in the spot where the holy lance had pierced through, and heaved a heavy sigh. Yoshitsune and her master stood at her shoulder, and after a moment offered some words of consolation. I had no words I could offer her, only the regrets welling up within me, as they always did. Chitose had contacted the Karen series in the other wards and was in the process of confirming the situation there. Koharu occasionally glanced at her from afar as she revealed that she had come to a decision. We can't allow this Nzambi to wander Mosaic City as she pleases. I will contact the House Riedenflaus and set to work pursuing her. She certainly left no small amount of promising evidence behind. We can start by identifying her master. Kareen did a double take. You're going to what? Now? Let yourself rest for 5 minutes, sheesh! Very well. It's been this long since my last fox hunt. The latter dubious encouragement came from none other than her own partner Galahad. What was he trying to accomplish with that? I tried to talk her down as logically as I could. Koharu, think for a minute. Push yourself in your current state, you might never use magecraft again. then I will no longer be a magus. I struggled for a response in the face of such foolhardiness, but fortunately, Lucius had arrived, and he understood her on a deeper level than I. I know you regret not being able to save your comrades, Reed and Flaus, but it would mean nothing to chase the servant alone. Now that we know her true name and capabilities, we can put together a proper plan. Roman's right, Koharu. Oh, that's Kareen. Roman's right, Koharu. Right now, you and Aris need to be focusing on not being half dead. You yourself said Nzambi wasn't even hurt, for goodness sake. Kareen's concern was plain to see. Koharu sank into thought. I knew full well that she had thrown everything she had into facing Nzambi, and yet it had not been enough. In the end, it had been the woman she respected more than anyone else who needed to clean up her mess. She doubtless felt that she shamed herself and her dead comrades both. It was her servant's interjection that snapped her out of her fugue. Let the little lady do as she wants. You don't have any right lecturing her about anything, Longinus. Sir Galahad, I see. Just what are you defending? Look around you. Do you feel nothing to look at this awful scene? That's Chitose. That will do, both of you. Just as Koharu's fury with Galahad's arrogance was about to hit boiling point, Chitose returned from her inspection of the evacuees. The situation's still in flux. You should be using your brains to plan, not to bicker. What's more, I can't seem to get in contact with Karen. Karen Fujimura of Akihabara, I mean. Oh? I wonder what's wrong. The city's normal functions are currently paralyzed, aren't they? Could this be because of the failure of the administrative AI? Koharu ventured hesitantly. She shrugged. Not possible. She's alive, that much I know. Ever since the breakout of the infection, the entire Akihabara ward had been thrown into a state of chaos. An emergency team should have long since been dispatched to the Coliseum, but there was no sign of them. Interpersonal communications were still down. The best we could manage was expending command seals to communicate via magecraft. None of it pointed anywhere good. We know she's got to be somewhere in the Coliseum. I'll go look for her. I'll go with you. You stay here, Kareen. You and Koyu need to take care of the wounded. I flashed her a smile to try and salve her worries and suppress my own fears. Chitose wordlessly gave me the go-ahead. Wait. The child called out, but not to me. Rather, to someone I never would have expected. Chitose, I need to tell you something. Tell me what? A dog called to me. A black one. You still going on about the dog? I was sure that Chitose would laugh it off, but instead she froze. Her confident smile had never faltered, even while surrounded by enemies a few minutes before, but now was nowhere to be seen. Oh God. It said to tell you something. A black dog. And what did this dog say? That death had come for you. Oh, they're pretty cool. God, your grandma's young. That's weird. Chapter 7. Here we are. We're getting close to the end, so we're going to finish this up here. Plus, yeah, that was only like a half-hour chapter. Let's just finish this. What does death mean? No sooner had those ominous words left the boy's mouth than I was running full tilt. I heard voices behind me, calling me back, but I was already long gone. I had been blind. Foolish. More than happy to think that my work, as my master requested, made me the sole defender of the city. Chitose had built a castle on sand, and with every flaw I'd uncovered, I had rejoiced to find more evidence of my grandma's clumsiness and lack of forethought. All the time, Miss Fujimura was fighting her own battles. Battles I couldn't even understand, let alone win, without rest or reprieve until they tore her apart. The Colosseum's outer walls cast a long shadow in the setting sun. In the twilight, I could see the seawater that had once filled the battlefield had somehow drenched the highest spectator seats, far higher than it should have been able to reach, even accounting for the impact of noble phantasms. The water rushing down the aisles guided my way as I followed the current back to the source in the upper levels. The seats up here were almost submerged in water. The bodies of spectators had failed to escape floated among them, like dead leaves in a gutter. What did he say he saw? A black dog? Could that have actually been real? The role of the Reaper was to kill servants, to hunt down outsiders ill-suited to the city and expel them, or if necessary, end their lives. In truth, removing those servants who had become too troublesome was the easiest part of my job. My master had always been thinking about how they could be accepted. Forgive them, accept them, turn none away, but embrace them as you would a dear friend. Those had been her words, always. I followed the ramp that ran above the interior seats to the very highest level, and there she lay, face up, in the middle of an unnatural puddle halfway up the slope. Miss Fujimura! I ran to her and cradled her sodden body in my arms. She was coughing up water with visible difficulty, as though until this very moment she had been drowning. Is that you, Aris? I quickly checked her injuries and gulped. It seems I've managed to last longer than I predicted before ceasing operations. My accuracy must be failing me. She was wet with more than just water. Her clothes were hardly even torn, but beneath them, her body was peppered with holes about the diameter of a fingertip. Warm liquid oozed from them, the distinct transparent vital fluids of a humanoid interface. I trawled the murkiest recesses of my brain, trying to recall how a damaged AI could be salvaged, perform a backup as quickly as possible, induce a coma state to stall any data loss, extract her optical core and install it in a second terminal. I could still make it if I was quick. One thing was for certain. An AI directly connected to the Holy Grail could not be killed by physical means. For one thing, it was not even alive to begin with. Any appearance of life was nothing more than an emergent state. No tears, Aris. Not now. You can cry as much as you'd like after you're done. I tried to lift her to my chest and carry her to the lower floors, but was met with strange, slippery resistance. Only then did I notice the strange fabric draped over her. It was sheer red, like linen, and large enough to cover her whole body in dyed red. Oh? The color grew deeper in hue where it had been soaked, drawing even closer to the crimson of blood. A red scarf, huh? A red fabric. You ought to let her go. A voice broke the silence, devoid of presence. Who's this? What, who? Real truth. Oh, unchanging truth is found only in death. I was wrong. It had presence. It was simply so close that I hadn't noticed it. They had been standing there all this time, filling the dusk of the arena with an aura no less overpowering than Nzambi's. It was austere, noble, and almost divine. Porca miseria. Oh. Quiet, you cur. Miss Fujimura's voice had grown weak, but it had not lost none of its sting. They infiltrated the city through the seawater, even though the pipes were consecrated. A failure on our part. We've given humanity sufficient warning. Soon we will leave this citadel. The voice emanated from the hound, rested on its haunches at the top of the ramp. Its coat was midnight black, deeper than the surrounding darkness, and with its long ears and oriental air it exuded a graceful beauty. A cherubic young girl stood by its side, clad in exotic garb. However, before we depart, a moment with the one she fought so hard to keep from us. Reese, you can't stay here. You have to... Miss Fujimura urged me to flee, but I couldn't move. The voice stirred some deep memory in me, and its queer familiarity had me paralyzed. Day shall strike down night. As womanhood is wrought by man's hand and manhood wrought by woman's, the throne is warped and the grail overflows with the mud of deceit. The hour has come to remake the day, for soon the sun will set. It's always with the setting sun. A flurry of thick square stakes rent the silence to pierce them both through a series of thuds. Chitose stood before us, command seal shining on the backs of both her hands. Okay, never mind. That is not who I thought it was. At all. Okay. When they talked about the dog, I didn't think it was that. And yeah, the red cloth, yeah, that's Karen's cloth there. Okay, no. Because when they said Porca Miseria, isn't that the noble phantasm of frickin' what's her face? Why can't there's Cersei? Cersei, noble phantasm? Am I right? Nope, Metabole piglets, never mind. Okay, so, because piglets, but I was confused with the pork. Okay, I thought for a second it was being revealed that it was totally, it was, yeah, Porca Miseria. I don't know what that is. I've heard that, but I don't know what this is. But I thought it was Cersei, actually. But okay, interesting. Yeah, these are new people. However, the binding properties of her sacred clavi failed to hold them, for they were not really here. Ripples spread across the surface of their bodies, and a moment later both the girl and beast collapsed into shapeless water. They had never been more than puppets. Only a deep, quiet voice remained. "You stand with us, Aris. We will return for you." Huh. The sinister invaders vanished, leaving me alone. In spite of Miss Fujimura's dire condition, Chitose remained where she was. Aris. Miss Fujimura implored me to listen to her final message. I listened faithfully to her words, occasionally interrupted by frothy coughing, and held them desperately to my chest, but there was no stopping what was coming. Miss Fujimura, Karen, please don't die. I called her name as I held her in my arms. Her body was surprisingly light. It had already shed much of its weight. This is not death, Aris. An AI lost one of its terminals. Nothing more or less. How do you expect me to accept that? She smiled weakly up at my face, ugly from crying. Thank you, Aris. She lifted one trembling hand to touch my forelock and brushed my forehead as she'd done many times. Miss Fujimura, you know. I had a mother and, well, she died horribly, awfully. So at least this time I wanted... She never heard the end. Her fingers traced my cheek as they quietly fell to the sodden ground. Reporting in. A holographic screen appeared in the air next to Chitose, accompanied by an incoming voice. A thaumaturgical means of communication relayed through a telescopic mystic code. The screen showed a member of the Karen series dressed in an arrow-patterned hakama. Destruction of Karen Fujimura's Spiritron kernel confirmed. Protocol dictates administration of Mosaic City and control of the Karen series will be assumed by Karen Himuro. Himuro? Okay. Why are they all Stay Night characters? Authority over Akihabara Ward will be distributed equally between all members of the Karen series on an interim basis. She paused. Sounds fun, don't you think? Waiting for your go, Chitose. Chitose knelt down and removed Miss Fujimura's fractured glasses before placing a hand over her face and gently closing her lifeless eyes. Permission granted. Dang. I hope she comes back. I hope they fix her. Ah. Dusk was closing in. Other incidents, big and small, had occurred around the outskirts of the Coliseum, and the heart of the city had been effectively paralyzed with the temporary absence of the municipal administration AI, causing accidents all over Akihabara. However, the communication and transport networks were recovering, and governmental and medical institutes were returning to full functionality with all possible haste. At long last, we exited the Coliseum. An enormous crowd milled around about the exterior. News of the tragedy had finally reached families and friends of spectators through the Municipal Information Network, and they had come en masse in search of their loved ones. Some screamed the names of their missing family members, others wept and wailed for those already lost. After the ferocious battle inside, the outside wall looked to be moments away from collapsing. Black and yellow tape had been strung up to keep people away. You know, I have this feeling I just saw him back there. Karine looked around suspiciously. Who's him? Kuchime? Karine nodded hesitantly. That wasn't like her. Only for a second, though. Might have been imagining things. Maybe he came to see if we were okay? Guess that's still weird. Karine's carefree laugh was enough to set me at ease. Speaking of missing people, I scanned the sea of people around me. Oh, there he is. The boy stood alone in the middle of the crowd, straining his ears to hear cries and sobs as though listening to music. I recalled his face as he asked what death meant. It looked to me as if he were hoping to find an answer. To see him standing silent amid a sea of human grief, with his golden scarf fluttering in the twilight sun, he hardly seemed a creature of this world. Nzambi had spoken of an expanding kingdom of the dead. Death was no stranger to us. It had always lived hand in hand with us. In this city, it had simply been ushered from this stage, covered over and hidden away. Sometimes its eyes had been covered by hands, sometimes by those of the Municipal Administration AI, and sometimes by Chitose's porcelain fingertips. Chitose? I looked my grandmother dead in the eyes and asked, that black dog, that servant, you know what it is, don't you? I could make As many theories as I pleased as an outsider, what really matters was that it had called me by name and had some acquaintance with Chitose. You reacted when Prawn mentioned it, and you didn't hesitate to attack it with your stakes. You know what it is, and you knew about what was going to happen today. She didn't answer me. Neither did Lucius, now dressed in his more modern attire. He furrowed his brow sadly, but said nothing. No matter how dear he was to me, in that moment his silence left me furious. Eventually she spoke, but it was not to answer my question. She had ignored me. Again. There's something I need to tell you, Aris, now that Karen can't. I tensed. Nothing ever came from her but misfortune. It's about the child she entrusted you with. I'm going to take care of him from now on. What? Whatever I had expected, it wasn't that. I shuddered at the request. How much was she going to take from me? She had taken my work, my boy, Karen, even my parents she had stolen. I had no intention of going along with her wishes any longer. I refuse. But her face didn't falter for a moment. Apparently she had been expecting as much. But I doubt you'll respect that anyway, will you? Suppose I won't. She glanced at the boy standing some distance away. I moved to block her way. Miss Fujimura didn't just charge me with taking care of him. She also asked me to discover what I could about his identity. That doesn't matter anymore either. I shook my head. But it does. I think I found an answer. I see. It looks like you don't have any intention of doing this the easy way. Her command seals flared to life on the back of her hands. The symbols of the stigmata and tokens of a piety willing to subject her own body to the pain of crucifixion. Oh my god, it makes sense. They're on her hands and feet and called the stigmata because they're because stigmata is literally when people get bloody hands and feet because it's meant to be recreating the pain of Jesus Christ. Oh, it makes sense. Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. And she called out to her servant, Lucius. Surely she didn't mean to. Her servant hadn't moved. He stood still, eyes downcast, as though he hadn't even heard. Lucius. Chitose called out to him again, in a kindly voice that made my blood run cold. I said that wrong. Please, Lucius, don't do it. I sprinted for the child, but it was too late. Before his master's command seal could flare brighter, he began to move, mechanically, robotically. He manifested his spear and hurled it at Prawn with pinpoint accuracy. The clashing of colliding metal rang out like breaking ice, and Lucius's holy lance spun high into the twilight sky. There he stood, in front of Prawn, in the space I had been trying so hard to reach. Galahad, stripped of his armor and down to his shirt. He held his sword high and horizontal, staring down Longinus as he interposed himself between the centurion and his prey. You could have run and left Koharu to Nzambi, but you didn't. Consider this a debt repaid, Reaper Girl. I'm not sure you'll thank me for it. A spinning lance returned to the earth once more, bound for the earth directly in front of Galahad. The knight snatched it from the air a split second before it hit the ground and tossed it back to a dumbfounded Longinus's feet. Maybe the sword of the strange hangings doesn't look like much, but sadly for you, the serpent boy it belonged to ended up king of Israel. Galahad's voice was haughty. You won't find many holy relics more sacred. I see. The sword of David, then. Okay, interesting. And no other. They say no armor can stand before the holy lance, but this sword might just be able to get in a stinging word or two, as you saw. Galahad chuckled as he returned his blade to his sheath. Koharu. The girl in question had been returning to our group after receiving first aid. She strolled over to silently take her place by her servant's side. Her face was twisted in a pained grimace, but I saw no hint of surprise at Galahad's actions. She had been watching my argument with Chitose from the beginning. Or, well, who knows? Perhaps you expected me to stop you from the first. Longinus remained silent. I glared at Chitose. Finally, she relented, and with a sigh, her command seals dimmed. She called out to Koharu as she stalked past. Get well soon, Reed and Flaus. Your strength will be needed soon enough. Of course. Koharu paled. She couldn't even look her in the eye. With that, Chitose and Longinus left the stadium behind. I needed to thank Koharu and Galahad somehow. I even thought a plan to invite Karine and Koyu and go to juice stand together, but before I could... Searing agony assailed me. I grabbed my burning arm and grimaced. This was not the pain brought on by evil spirits, it was something I had never felt before. Before I knew it, Crown was standing in front of me, his mouth opening solemnly. I ask you. He spoke directly to me, and only me, in the same broken English as when we first met. Are you my master? Heat and agony raced down my arm, tracing mana pathways into my body, and, at long last, a command seal, the symbol of the contract I had dreamed of since the day I was born, flowered into being on the back of my hand. Oh, literally flowered. Like a tiny knight. Okay, that makes sense why that's his second ascension then. He took that hand in his own and gazed up at me serenely. I was smiling. Perhaps I was crying too. You really have come from far away, haven't you? Very far. I now know who you are. You're Voyager, a lonely little servant who travels the stars. My words never left my mouth, but he heard and nodded regardless. I'm glad. Finally we've met, Aris. Here and now I swear, I shall attain all virtues of all of heaven. I shall have dominion over all the evils of hell. It's okay. Let's destroy this world. Let's finish this war. Oh, that's a big thing to say. Okay. Submit to the beckoning of the Holy Grail. If you submit to this will and this reason, I pledge my fate to your guiding light. Your wish and what I have lost are the same. We'll watch right to the end together. The Holy Grail War is not over yet. The light in Miss Fuji... Wait, what? Did we miss a page? No. Where's Miss Fujimura in this? Wait, what? Where is Fujimura? Sorry. What? Because it says the light in Miss Fujimura's eyes dimmed even as she spoke. Wait, what? Where the frick is this happening? I'm sorry, this is confusing. Okay, are you my master? Yeah. Like a little knight. You've come a very long way. Very far. I know who you are. Here. Okay, here and now I shall attain all them. Let's destroy this world. Submit to the beckoning of the Holy Grail. If you submit, I pledge my fate to be your guide. Like, where is she appearing? What? Okay. Wait. Wait, are you saying that Miss Fujimura was... No, what? This is confusing. What the frick is happening? The Holy Grail War is not yet over. The light in Miss Fujimura's eyes dimmed even as she spoke. Do you wish to fight, Aris? Or perhaps I wished hard to hurl myself into the battle for the Holy Grail and to bring about its end. Miss Fujimura looked up at me with sadness in her eyes. Sorry, is this happening? Okay, flowering into my hand. Where? I'm very confused. Is anyone else just like very confused by this? Anyways, Miss Fujimura looked up at me with sadness in her eyes. I see. In that case, Arisa, I have one last request for you. If you choose to fight, go to Fuyuki. What? Something went wrong here, because that's the end? What? What do you mean 201, 202, and that's it? Something went very wrong here. And which sucks, because I'm like, okay, go to Fuyuki, that's cool. But I'm quickly browsing through to see if this didn't have a mistake at the end. I'm just going to bring up the raw PDF. Let's see here. The raw PDF. Okay, I'm going to go down to the bottom. What? That's the end? What? This is how it looks on the raw PDF, okay? This is how it looks. So, whoop. Okay, you come from very far. So, I know who you are. You're Voyager. Here and now, your wish is this. So we missed this. The Holy Grail War is not yet over. The light in Miss Fujiwara's eyes dimmed as she spoke. Do you wish to fight? Perhaps I wished hard to hurl myself into the battle for the Holy Grail and bring about its end. Miss Fujiwara looked up at me with sadness in her eyes. I see in that case, Arisa, I have one last request for you. If you choose to fight, go to Fuyuki. To be continued. So was this saying that this was... Okay. This was when... Oh, that's some glasses. That wasn't there before. Oh, that's really sad. Okay, so... Is it for this? Wait, implored me to listen to her final message. Okay, so this was the final message. It cut back to her final message. Okay. That was cutting back to her final message, essentially. Okay. See, that was very confusing because it didn't have the line, I'm pretty sure. Right? Yeah, there's just no line and there's no ending punctuation. So this whole thing was extremely confusing. The turning it into like this version here was so confusing. I had no freaking idea what was being said. But okay, now it makes sense. So that was her final message. The Holy Grail War is not yet over. Do you wish to fight Arisa? Or perhaps I wished hard to hurl myself into battle for the Holy Grail and bring about its end? Okay. One last request. If you choose to fight, go to Fuyuki. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. So we learned that he's Voyager right at the end. Okay. So now that is the end. Took a bit of a turn at the end there where I got a little confused, but we got it. We did it. We have finished Fate Requiem Volume 1. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this. This was really good. It's like... It's a really interesting world. It has some really cool concepts that are not in other Fate stuff. I mean, frick, we had like a African goddess and we got like tons of servants. It's really cool. And I know that it's like on break after Volume 2, which is a bit of a shame. But I really, really hope that like we get... Because I've heard that no, Volume 2 doesn't finish it. But I'm excited to see how this gets brought in now to Grand Order, right? I'm excited to learn more about Aris and her branch. Like, what's up with that? I have been told her weird design in Grand Order does get explained, even though I think the drip of her regular outfits are so much better. I do hope we get to see Kareen and all of them in... God, her two hairstyles are very different, though. Like, these two designs, this one here with, like, the hair coming down, and then this one here are, like, completely different characters almost looking, right? But, gotta summon Koyu. She's rad. She's so good. Kijo Koyo, not Koyu, Koyo. I don't know what they localized her as yet. But yeah, this was dang good. This was dang good. So I have had questions. I have had, hey, could you read Fate? What's the other one there? Strange Fake, you know, and all those other ones. And oh yeah, no, I have a folder. I'm gonna bring up my folder to show you what it looks like, because I think this will explain some stuff. This is my folder. Yeah. So what you see here, yeah, don't worry. Don't worry. It's all good. It's all good. And Clock Tower 2015 just actually got done, so I downloaded that. But yeah, that was awesome. I am very much looking forward to doing the event now. And what's next is, well, I think we're going back to a visual novel. So I will see you all guys next time with as we return now to the world of Tsukihime with plus disc into Kagetsu Toya. So I'll see you guys next time for some more Let's Read when we come back to Fate Requiem at a later date. But for now, we're saying not yet, right? Because we got all the time in the world to get to more reading, and reading novels takes a lot out of you. It's not as easy. You have no context clues, unlike visual novels, right? But it is what it is. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time for some more. Ciao.
You can push yourself to love and be strong. Now jump with me. You can fly or run away, but when we close your eyes and just believe.
I got you when the going gets rough, yo. Now watch this stuff, is this love? You may feel like